But I think where people go wrong, James, is that they're thinking, sorry, mate.
It's okay.
God, we haven't got off to a good start here, have we?
I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to have a few bloopers here and we're going to enjoy this.
I need to get back here. I need to get back into the state, mate.
You turn the radio off, you're overheating.
I know. And then you had to repeat the question. You don't want the thing that you think you want. You don't. What you want is the version of yourself that exists in your imagination when you have the thing you want.
Hello and welcome to the James Granstrom podcast, Super Soul Model Series. This week we are blessed to have Matt Cooke rejoin us on the Super Soul Model Series. Matt is an international manifestation coach and he's helping millions of people all over the world by helping them manifest their best lives. So I'd just like to re-welcome back to the show my good friend, Matt Cooke.
James, thank you. So good to be back.
Oh, Matt, it's been a while since we've connected. We've been toing and froing on message prior to meeting up, but it's been a while since you're back on the show. When was it last that we were?
I had a look. It was October 2022.
So a lot happened since 2022.
Yes.
So let's just, for the purpose of the audience, just remind people of your personal journey, if we may.
So if anyone's listening for the first time, great. A lot of people have heard this story. But it actually starts in September of 2018. And at the time then, I was about 10 years into my corporate job in real estate, managing a firm here in the UK, youngest manager in the company, and just very unfulfilled, highly stressed and just trying to find a way to create a little bit more freedom for myself and Coruscant, my wife. And just going through a period of like high stress and actually struggling to breathe. Right. Really tight chest. And, by that point, it's just worth noting I wasn't spiritual at all. And my wife's grandmother recommended some reflexology. So I had no idea what that was, but she said it will help. So I just went along with it. I sat down at the therapist's house, lay on the couch. And the first question he asked me, and he didn't know who I was, he just said, "So Matt, tell me who you are." And I said, "Well, I'm 26 years old. I'm an estate agent." And he stopped me in my tracks. He said, "No, I didn't ask what you did for a living. I asked who you are." And I didn't know who I was. He said, I'm not interested in the title. Who are you? So I had this, this was my first realization that, oh, there is someone that exists behind this corporate shell. Who is it? I didn't know what that was then, but I had this realization. It almost as if my awareness completely separated. My whole identity was built on this corporate facade. And carried on with the reflexology. And actually, that question lingered for months. Who am I? And that awareness and those questions led me to various resources online. And long story short, tried to find a way out of, the corporate world. Really trying to figure out who I am, though, in all of this, the awareness. But I didn't label it as awareness or consciousness then. I just knew I wasn't this corporate label. And I was asking these bigger questions, trying to figure it out. And then one evening, fast forward now to February 2019, typical evening, lying in bed with my wife, Coruscant. We're watching something on our laptop. And as I rolled over to try and go to sleep, she was still awake. I'm still awake. I'm still aware of the world around me. The laptop's still playing. And just this very strange sensation came over me. This vibration is what it felt like, head to toe. And it didn't feel horrible. It didn't hurt. I just allowed it to continue because I was curious. It felt like I was hovering above the bed. And then I just heard this voice, and it sounded like it was from the opposite end of a sports hall. And it got closer and closer. And it said, "Matt, can you hear me? It's Mum." Now, for context, my mum passed away 18 months before that. Mm-hmm. And we had a brief conversation before Coruscant nudged me. And she said, "Matt, who are you talking to?" And I turned to Coruscant to tell her, turned back, Mum had gone. So as a lot of people know that story, that there really triggered this exploration of reality. I've just had a conversation with my mum, who's not in this physical world anymore. I'm awake. I'm not spiritual. I've never really spoken to a medium. I'm the super skeptic here. I need to figure this out. And that's where it started. And, the one thing I noticed straight away with that encounter was that I didn't try to connect with my mom. I didn't want to connect with my mom. It just happened. And I, looking back now and reflecting back, actually, is I was becoming so aware of like my own consciousness in a sense because of that reflexology session those months before. I think I was more in tune unconsciously, right? It didn't just happen randomly. Like 1 minute, I'm in like the corporate world and I'm not spiritual or even asking these questions and then connect. There was a slow sort of build up unconsciously. And, I knew I didn't want to be a medium, but I started to realize there's more to this three-dimensional reality than meets the eye and start asking the bigger questions and just start going down the rabbit holes of quantum mechanics. And long story short, I end up figuring out that this reality that we live in is just energy, vibration, frequency. Then you start hearing the words manifest and law of attraction, and that's where it started.
Fascinating story. Must have blown your mind to even try and come around to thinking to the point that there's something else going on than just what's in front of my eyes. I remember looking at my own experience as well. I was looking at the news one day and I was like, if this is all there is, I'm not interested anymore. And so, yeah, I think the first question, if one is conscious to improve the quality of their life, is to really ask that first question: who am I? Like that doctor said to you, who am I? And why am I here? And what's my purpose? Because unless you ask that question, you're always going to be stuck in a funk, in what I call the loop of lunacy. I know I was. And that question has obviously propelled you into a new life, a new career, and a new perspective. So if we last connected in 2022, a lot's happened since then.
Yeah.
What's happened in your life since then that has actually demonstrated that what you're talking about, what you've investigated, what you've researched actually works when we're talking about manifestation? What things have been like, oh my golly, this really works for me, and I really want to help people with that? Because you are a massive advocate for helping people, and it really shows across your social media content.
Yeah. I think proof first in my own ability to manifest.
Yeah.
Since 2022, I wasn't really doing this full time. I was still half in digital marketing, which, to fill the gaps there, was how I got out of real estate, but I knew it wasn't me. So it was more of a sort of a side passion manifestation. It's what helped me get out of the corporate world. But since 2022, I mean, taking this on full time as a serious, I don't like to call it career because it doesn't feel like work at all. Mission, I think, is that what I realized then, and I'll go into this, is that I think so many people think manifestation is a technique that we sort of have to learn, or it's secret, and you have to read certain books. Actually, it's your natural state. Every single person listening to this is in a state of manifestation, whether they know that consciously or not. I don't think I quite realized that even then in 2022. The observation in quantum mechanics turns energy into physical matter, and there is the two sides to us, right? There is the program, the ego, the avatar, and then there is the awareness, the consciousness, the soul. And so many people are not aware of the separation between the two. A metaphor that I like is, imagine an astronaut. You look at an astronaut in space, they're in this suit. I like to imagine that that's the avatar, the physical construct, the human body, the programs, and then there's the person inside the suit. And that person inside the suit is the awareness, the consciousness. So many people think they're the suit, not the person behind it. And most people think that they are their thoughts, but they're not. Thoughts are just the spacesuit. We're always separate from our thoughts, and if we're not aware of the separation, then our observation of reality is the identity of the spacesuit, the thoughts. And if you're aware of the negative self-talk every day, then who's the one listening? So it was that big realization for me that, oh my God, I get this now, that Well, if 95% of who we are on average by the age of 35 is subconsciously programmed, then most people's observation of reality is subconsciously programmed. So, therefore, their dominant observation is what they know to be true based on their past and their traumas, and what they believe about themselves. And that is manifesting because observation collapses the wave in quantum mechanics. So,
Mm.
only when you become aware is when you can consciously manifest. And that's the real difference,
Okay,
right?
right. So if you're still with us, audience, I think that Matt's put it very, very shrewdly and simply for us to really understand that manifestation is happening whether you like it or not. Number one, the simple rule. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt, because I'm just sort of regurgitating what you said, but hopefully making it clear just so that we get past this step, because we're going to go into the next question, which is going to take us even further. You are not your thoughts. You are merely the thinker of your thoughts. True or false?
Well, you're on top of them,
You're
really.
thoughts.
Metacognition, the word meta means on top of. Metacognition is awareness of thought.
So if you are not your thoughts, but your thoughts are creative, who's doing the thinking?
Well, not the awareness, the program, the avatar, the how it tends to work is, we'll think about it. We might be triggered externally by something, and that then tends to slip by our awareness, create a feeling, and that feeling then creates thoughts, right? And we can't think greater than how we feel. So, thoughts are the makeup of like the brain, but we're not the awareness. Like, is always separate from that. It sits on top of. But
So it could be like thoughts are like paints, but your awareness is the canvas.
correct. It's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm looking at that painting behind you, so I was just thinking, oh, that canvas there, and then all our thoughts are creating
on it. Yeah,
it's on it. So the
yeah.
images we wish to imbue in our life with beauty or with victimhood or whatever, wherever you're at, you have the ability with your paints and your thoughts to create on the canvas of your life on a day-to-day basis. But I really like your astronaut analogy.
Yeah.
So if someone's new to manifestation, what would you say that is a great starting point for them?
Understand what manifestation is. Conscious manifestation is the deliberate act of bringing something that you desire into the physical world. But before you do that, and don't get me wrong, the first place that everyone starts with is what they want. I want a new career. I want a new relationship. I want a new business. I want more money. Great. Start in lack. Start with what's missing in your life. But understand this, that, like I said earlier, we're always in a state of manifestation. So we don't attract into our life what we want. We attract into our life who we're being. That's a fundamental twist that you've got to understand straight away. That most people are living in wanting mode. And if you continuously say, I want more money, I want more love, that is what you manifest, more of the wanting. You attract, the universe always says yes. So it will say yes to the want. So what you need to do first is practice what I call self-observation. If I've just spoken about how observation has this amazing ability, and we can dive deep into that in quantum mechanics to turn energy into physical reality, then don't focus first on what you want. First, get clear on it, but then move away from that and actually focus on who you're being in the present moment. So what I like to do with all my clients is just practice that awareness of self. Observe yourself day to day. What thoughts are you thinking day to day? How are you acting day to day? How does the day make you feel? Become like a scientist, a detective in a way, for the first couple of weeks at least. Even in a meditation, when you slow down your brain waves, just become aware of what comes up. Because if you don't take a grip over that and become aware of it, that is your observation of reality. And that's what's manifesting.
So when you first started going into this new career of yours, from having gone from the corporate world into the world of teaching people about manifestation and the science of drawing what you want into your experience, How did you begin to change? What was your first thing where you actually consciously showed up differently to change your frequency or to change your vibration so that you'd begin to attract new into your experience? Because a lot of people find themselves on the cusp of that, but then that next bit is, I don't know how to be any different than what I'm being.
Yeah. So I think first, I understood pretty much all of that I've just explained. But how do you do that then? If you have a dream, I think actually, James, where people go wrong with manifestation is they're thinking too big. Paradox, because in the sort of self-help world, if you like, it's always dream big. But actually, this is a game of alignment, vibration. So what I like to do is actually think no more than 12 months out, for example, and then even reverse engineer that 12-month goal down as well to smaller manifestations that I believe are true in the next 3 months, for example. Why? Because that's still keeping me in alignment with the 12-month vision. It's still keeping me in alignment with an even bigger vision, maybe 5 years out. I can give a tangible example. The end, around about when we did our podcast last, I had a dream of becoming an author. And this whole experience that I had putting this into a book, I had no idea. In fact, I had a limiting belief. Who's going to read my book? I've got no audience, really. I had just sort of started out on social media by that point. I remember my English teacher telling me that I wasn't that great at English. So I have this desire. I have this goal, manifestation to one day write a book. Now let me reverse engineer it all the way down to I need an audience. So in fact, our last interview, I don't even think I was on Instagram by that point. I really started to take Instagram seriously.
I remember because I actually found you on TikTok and
You
you
did?
were speaking and I was thinking, when we contacted each other, I was like, I felt like I've known Matt for ages. And you were like, I feel like I've known you for ages as well. And I could just tell that the energy was just such a match to what I've been sharing and what I talk about and what you were talking about. And I thought, oh God, this is so easy.
Yeah.
And you've exploded by giving that much attention. And so you actually have been using your own tools to reach more people, which has been amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. So exactly. So with that in mind, I like I'd say to everyone, once you figured it out, get really clear, like specificity, like be clear in your intent. And for me, that was very clear. Instagram, I need to take seriously. So I start posting content around December, and I have one manifestation in 2023. This is 100,000 lives by the end of the year. Now, that felt true. There was a limiting belief in a way about the fact that Instagram felt very mature. I already had 100,000 over on TikTok, but that was sort of easy to grow because it was a relatively newer platform there. Whereas Instagram, limiting belief about putting it off. But it felt true. I just still knew a couple of videos could explode if I play this right and I visualize it. And I reverse engineered it down again to I remember thinking 10,000 followers by the end of March. And what happened was when I started that around the beginning of 2023, I remember this, the 6th of February, I hit 100,000 followers. And I still say to this day, the reason that happened is because I wasn't trying to manifest 100,000 followers by the 6th of February. It felt true at the end of the year. So I was in alignment with it. So it happened a lot sooner. And that's what I've seen in my journey. It's all about truth. It's about alignment. It's about vibration. And when you really feel it and you surrender the how, like I had no idea a couple of videos would pop. It happens. And then we can talk about what happened after that.
Well, I think what's really great is that that's your experience, but also you're saying that is true for me. But if someone feels as though that couldn't be true for them, then how do you get them to believe again? Because that's important for everybody who's listening, because there's certain goals that people may have had for years, but they're not drawing them into their lives. So what would you say there?
I think this is such a beautiful question because I can answer it in two ways. Firstly, you've got to understand why it doesn't feel true to you. What is that block and where's it derived from? It's part of your programming. So spend a lot of time trying to uncover that truth, firstly, about why it is your truth. Because if you don't understand why it's your truth, it will continuously manifest for you. And secondly, this, because we all have that. We all have those moments about, can I do this though? That person might be able to, but can I? Is that on a quantum level, if we really think about what we're manifesting from, if you break down every single element of physical reality down to its purest form, you get to atoms. Below that, you get to subatomic particles, photons, electrons,
Quarks, bosons, all the rest of it.
exactly, string theory. You go all the way down. You arrive at unifying fields of energy, quantum fields. And those quantum fields are infinite. There's an infinite amount of energy there. And if there's an infinite amount of energy, and as you know, James, energy is always in a state of movement. That movement's vibration, and vibration carries frequency, and frequency is rich in information. Then, very simply, like analytically, I can understand that it already exists, right? It already exists. So even if I don't think it's true, it already exists. So whether it is, and I'll talk about this, whether it's the observer effect in quantum mechanics or the many worlds interpretation, whatever I think's not true actually already exists. So how do I bring that into my reality then? Is the question. Because I can look at it two ways. I can understand that I have this block, but I can also understand that it exists. So,
I think if you wanted to put it in another terminology, if we're looking at it from perhaps a spiritual aspect, you could say that when you ask, it is given. When you've asked for something, it's already existing in some reality. You just
yes. The question is, though, how does it spill over into your reality? Because it might exist in a parallel version. How does it? And this is where we could go a little bit deep here, if I may. That I've mentioned a couple of times here. You know, if you look at the double slit experiment or the observer effect in quantum mechanics, that energy exists in superposition, right? It exists. Every single possible state exists in that field. Only when it's observed does it turn from that unifying field, that infinite field, into the particle, right? The first element of our physical reality. So then coming back to you, there's two sides to you. There's the ego, there's the avatar, there's the programming, and then there is the observation. So you can ask, dream about more money or a better relationship or a better job, but you've got to be consistent with that vision, and you've got to really align everything. So you've got to work on that programming, because if you ask, but then you allow that programming to take over, I'm not worthy, it's not going to happen to me, that is your dominant observation of reality. And it overspills. That observation is what manifests. Hopefully I'm making sense. Yeah. So what I've really found myself is that I've got to really focus on that programming. I've got to really try and rewrite programs to make sure that that observation is aligned.
So let's go to the next question. How do you rewrite a program to where you may have a limiting belief? For instance, if someone's listening and they're thinking, God, I've wanted more money for ages, or I've wanted a career change for ages, or I've wanted this or that, and it's not come about. Limiting belief perhaps is in the way. What would Matt say is something that you could do to begin to change that? Because that reality already exists for you. You just got to meet it, as we've spoken about.
Again, two ways I can answer this that I do myself. First, become aware of what they are. What is that voice telling you about yourself? Become the scientist, look at it, have it out, in journals and pieces of paper, see it. And then, okay, let's figure out how we can reprogram it. Firstly, the one I love, consistency, frequent repetition. On average, it takes 66 days. There was a huge study done for something that you do every single day to become programmed habitually. So if you believe that you're not worthy, or if you believe money's hard, if you rewrite the reframe of that as an affirmation, for example, and you commit to it every single day, on average, by 66 days, you should start to rewrite that program and replace it. Okay, so that's firstly. Secondly, slowing down brainwaves. And how I like to do that is going from beta brainwaves, being the analytical part of the brain, down to alpha, down to theta. And down in theta, we're highly suggestible. The body doesn't know the difference between what's a dream and what's real. To give everyone an example, we've all experienced having a nightmare. You wake up in the middle of the night, you believe that nightmare's real, you start reacting emotionally. In fact, I've got a great example of that myself. Only a couple of months ago, my newborn son, now Humphrey, is 3.5 months old. When he was about a month and a half old, I woke up blind panic about 3 a.m. For 5 seconds, probably. I believed that he was somewhere under the duvet, lost under the duvet, and I panicked. And I woke my wife and she panicked. And then we realized that no, he's fine. He's perfectly safe in his crib. But in theta, you believe what you're seeing. So then take this as an example. What if we do that in reverse? What if we take what you're seeking to manifest, dream it up as if it's already a reality, and then take that into a meditation? And when we're down in theta brainwaves, we can then hold that vision in our mind, and the body will react emotionally as if it's already real. And if we do that over and over again, that starts to rewrite the program. So the magic of this, James, is that if we do it with enough consistency, we rewrite the programs, and those programs become your dominant observation of reality. And manifestation becomes so much easier because your dominant vibration, better said, is aligned with what you seek.
I want to share with you a story that happened to me 2023.
Okay.
And it's to do with consistency. And what Matt is saying is that consistency really is the key to being able to rewrite a new story for what you're wanting to draw into your life. And in 2023, at the beginning of the year, I wrote on my phone in the notes section what I wanted as if it was already done. I wanted to, at the time, I was looking after my mum after my father had died, and we wanted to sell some land and sell the villa. And I'd written that as if it was done. I wanted to make more money, and I wrote that as if it was done. I wrote something in the words of my income has increased so significantly. What else does I write? I wrote about a new partner, and I wrote about someone very close to me who had an illness. I wanted them to be healed, and I read that every night and every morning in that dreamy state when you first wake up and just before I went to bed. And I was like closing my eyes and trying to feel that feeling as if it was already done. Maybe 1 or 2 minutes, first thing in the morning, first thing at night. But what's happening, which is referring to what Matt was saying, was that at that time when you're just waking up or you're just going to sleep, you're in the theta brainwave. So that's a free time for you to actually access that powerful brainwave of where things can be created. And about 7 months later, one of those things happened. And then about 8 months later, another thing happened. And then about 9 months later, it was as if everything I'd written had absolutely 100% come true on everything I'd written.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the time that it was all going to happen, but everything on that list had absolutely come true. And now I swear by that. I can't go to sleep or wake up in the morning without something
without writing something,
without
reading
having
something,
written something, and then maybe after 30 days or 50 days I'll discard it and write something new.
Yeah.
Because I constantly want my mind to feel as though it's in the process of absorbing what it is that I want, so I'm not being sloppy. Because I would like to say I think most people are very sloppy thinkers, which is why they keep getting what they keep getting.
Yeah, I love that. But it's exactly how you manifested it, though. It became your observation of reality because you programmed it into yourself. That's what you did. And there's the magic, whether you do it in that way, whether you journal, whether you practice, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
There's different tools to use it.
So what is, if someone's starting out, what would you say there is a go-to tool from Matt that you'd say, look, guys, this is where I started and it really works? Is it visualization? Is it meditation? Is it, setting a few minutes aside to just dream it up a day?
Yeah.
Is it for you that's really worked and has helped your clients? And I'm sure you've got some fascinating stories of your clients of things that have happened under your tuition.
There's various, to be honest, that I do, and I still do it to this day. Every day, I don't miss a day. I can tell you what they are, and it's so simple for everyone to do. The first is be defined by the future. as if it's already a reality. You know, if you're listening to this and you believe that your thoughts have some form of an impact on your reality, then did you wake up this morning and mentally rehearse your future? Most people don't. So if you do believe your thoughts create your reality, then make sure every single morning you are in that dreamy state where you rehearse. Now, I didn't understand how meditation fitted into manifestation. As you know, there's so many different ways to meditate, whether that's transcendental meditation, binaural beats, silence, breath. I do all of that, but I also like the guided, and I have my own guided meditations that my clients use. And my guided meditations range from 50 minutes to half an hour. And they first slow you down to that theta state. And then I guide you to visualize your future. And the goal there is that you're starting your day visualizing what you're seeking to manifest as if it's already a reality. And I've just explained why that's powerful from the point of view of the body.
Yeah.
And then, honestly, what I then recommend is journaling. So either prompts where you're, asking a question like, how can I take inspired action this week? Or what thoughts have I been aware of about myself this week that are out of alignment with that vision? Really powerful stuff. Like I said, about being that sort of curious scientist. Gratitude is my secret weapon, but it's not being grateful for what's already in your life. That should be a prerequisite. It's saying thank you for the things you seek now ahead of the event. That's collapsing the wave in quantum mechanics.
Have you
right?
used that gratitude in advance to some phenomenal effect?
Everything I've manifested, everything has come from gratitude as like a primary tool.
And in what way have you structured that up? If someone was listening to go, do you know what? I am grateful for the things I have, but I didn't realize I could be grateful in advance for things as if they were already
Yeah.
done. So is there like a formula that you've used
Yeah,
that
there is.
people could apply?
So the way I manifest, like I've said at the beginning of this podcast, is I take down the big goal and I break it down. And I'm going to give a tangible example because we recently manifested our dream house in Cornwall. And there's different ways to purchase a house depending on where you are in the world. But here in the UK, it's quite laborious and long-winded, and there's various processes. And so what I do is I when I write down my gratitude every day, I write down 5 things I'm grateful for. By all means, write a couple of things that are already in your life, like the health of my son and my wife.
Yeah.
But for example, like let's imagine I was still in the process of buying this house. And let's imagine I'm waiting now for the bank to approve my mortgage application, which is one of the processes. I'm not going to stay in a fear state or an anxious state. What I'm going to do is I'm going to collapse the wave. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to say, I am so grateful and blessed now that the mortgage company have approved our application intent. Here's the big one. Because we are now buying and then enter house in Cornwall. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So that's the real power. Intent, which is what you're grateful for, because is why you're grateful for it. But it's the next step. So then that manifests. And then we move to the next part in that buying process. And that's just an example of how I'm using gratitude just in my normal life, And that will just take up one statement. And then another statement might be to do with the book I've just written, and then something else. And yeah, I've been doing gratitude every single day like that since about 2020, 21.
Amazing. I've had so much fun being thankful in advance for stuff, even when I felt like I've been on the edge. I might have shared it on a reel or a podcast recently, but I was away skiing recently for a week, and my flight that I was due to catch was delayed, which was going to prevent me catching another flight. And then that collapsed the window of amount of time. I remember looking, going, oh, what previously meant that I had a significant amount of time to get from one flight to the next flight, because I was traveling between several different countries, was now 5 minutes. I had 5 minutes to get off one plane and get on the next one. So as Matt is saying, he was right. He was saying, be thankful as if it's done. So I'm sat at an airport. I'm going to be specific here. I was sat in Geneva Airport writing thank you on my phone here. Thank you for all the helpful people. Thank you for my bags somehow finding their way to pick up. Thank you that, all the air stewards and all the helpful people. Thank you that I had enough time, not 5 minutes thinking that's not enough time, but thank you I had enough time. And I must have gone on and on and on, because by the time I actually boarded that flight, which was heavily delayed, they said, I don't think you're going to be able to catch your connecting flight. But in my heart, I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you that I've made it. Thank you that I've made it. Just thank you, I've made it. And thank you that I've made it. Now, I didn't think my bags were essentially going to make it as well, because to get off one plane with 5 minutes to get on another plane, I thought, oh,
And the bags, yeah.
But I thought, thank you for the bags, and I really went off on one. So I was sat on that plane between Geneva and Zurich, which was about a 40-minute flight, writing thank you the whole time. And I had 5 minutes to catch the plane, and I caught the plane. And I was like, oh, number one, I've actually made this plane. This is just, like, wow. And when I arrived at my final destination in Spain, I got off the plane and I thought, oh, I'll just go to the luggage hall just in case,
Yeah.
I thought, there's not really much chance, but I had written this down and I had felt thankful, and I just felt so blessed already I was at the airport or even managed to catch that plane, because otherwise I wouldn't be traveling for another 24 hours. So this is just the power of gratitude. But I walked off, I went to the carousel where they dropped the luggage off. First bag off was mine.
There you go.
And I was like, how about that? And I walked away and I was like, oh my God, that could have been a very costly experience of both time and money.
Sure.
But gratitude was the currency that I used that afforded me so much time, so much good feeling. And I use it for literally everything. And I just love the way Matt had described that he'd used it for, even writing his book that he's done. And the other thing that you were mentioning about being grateful in advance for the mortgage on the property.
All the process.
The universe doesn't matter about the size. It just really matters that you're focused on emitting that good feeling frequency.
It's a receivership frequency. That's gratitude. It's when we give something to someone else, they say thank you. It's a thank you is the secret word. I think it's important though here, James, to mention something. Someone might be listening to this and saying, yeah, but I've done that and that didn't work. But a lot of people try and manifest things and it doesn't work. And, I've explained the observation thing, and that would be worth reflecting on. But even myself, there was another house that I initially had my eyes on that I tried my hardest to manifest. I know all the tools.
Yeah.
Rejected.
How did you feel when that happened, when you were rejected?
Excited.
You were excited that it was rejected?
Let me tell you why.
Okay.
Years ago, of course, no. It's the ego, though, that's bruised. And this is too deep to go, but let me explain that there's from years of experiencing this with other things and working with clients, that sometimes you can do all the work, all the visualizing, all the gratitude, all the journaling, all the theta, all the banana beats, everything, rejection. And you have to, in that moment, realize that is protection and redirection. Rejection is protection and redirection. And every single time, and I really do mean this, as long as you're willing to step back and trust and not allow the ego to take over, you'll be redirected to something absolutely beautiful that blows you away. Okay? So in the case of the house that I wanted to buy initially, the house that I'm now in is in the same village, 5 farmers fields away. It was 20% less in value, a better house. The other one, in hindsight, needed a new roof. It had issues that I didn't see, but my ego really, really wanted it because this one didn't exist. Now, when that rejection comes up, this is when most people struggle. They say manifestation doesn't work. The ego takes over, and they either give up And what they do by giving up is they block the redirection and the flow because they push themselves out of alignment back into like resistance, or they try and really push through and ignore that rejection. Now, there's two ways to manifest: surrendered manifestation or manufactured manifestation. And like with the example of my house, it was the surrendered approach where I'm set the intention for the type of house, rejected, but then redirected 5 farmers fields away. Now, I could have manufactured that outcome. I could have got on the phone to a couple of wealthy clients and said, hey, could you spot me, and act as the bank and do all this and try and ignore the rejection. You have to really understand that larger consciousness system, that intelligence that we're co-creating with, knows. It really does know whether that manifestation is right for you or not, because it has one goal in mind. And that is, there's a term here called lowering entropy, which in another sense is like raising consciousness, creating more order. And because it exists beyond the limitations of physical reality, it knows the path. It knows. So you can say, I want this intention, but if it can see that it will create a high entropy, which is chaos and disorder, it will do its best to communicate that with you through rejection. And I didn't know that on our last podcast, really, even. And it's taken me years to fully understand that as well.
That's why some people's careers may not go in a way that they want them to, because it's not going to lead them down a path. I started in banking before I got into modeling, before I got into talking and helping people with wellness. What was the timing between being rejected with that first property and then the next one showing up?
About 6 months.
Okay. So 6 months of preparing your energy to receive a better property.
I can actually tell you the story, if you like, about how the rejection happened. It's very interesting. I think people will enjoy hearing this. So doing all the work to try and manifest this house.
So you're working extremely hard to
understanding the paradox at the same time that wanting equals lack, and I've got to really try not to get too involved here. So I do what I do, and when I find myself struggling a little bit, if you like, which is giving it up to higher intelligence for a sign. So this was October 23, and I wrote down, higher intelligence. I'm open and ready to receive a sign about this purchase, this particular house. At the time, I was living in Shropshire in temporary accommodation with Coruscant's parents, our whole house in storage, and went to bed, had this really vivid dream. I'm a very vivid dreamer. And I had a dream that I was walking around this farmhouse, and there were beams and lovely carpets and beautiful, like this gorgeous house in Cornwall. And I said to the agent, great, how much is it? And she said, it's to rent. And I woke up from the dream and I was so confused because I'd asked for a sign about how to purchase this particular house because it had a few issues, right? You'll see where I'm going with this. And I have a very vivid dream about a house to rent. So that day, Coruscant and I went to Bicester Village shopping here in the UK, and we're talking over breakfast. And I told her about this dream, and she said, "There's no way I'm renting. Like, I just don't want to rent. Like, we've been renting temporarily for a couple of years. I want to buy." The bill came, and it was £44.44. And I said, "Well, I know the fours in numerology mean support, trust, and foundations. This is a sign." And she said, "No, it's not." We crossed over the road into a shop, and the lady that was helping Coruscant had a necklace. And as it swung, the necklace read 444. This is, James, 15 minutes after seeing that sign. And I said to the woman, I said, "What does that mean?" And she said, "It's an angel number. It means foundations and support, to trust in your vision."
It also means all is well.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So get on to Rightmove, which is the property app here in the UK. And I mean this. The exact property that was in my dream was available on Rightmove. This was a Saturday afternoon. The estate agents had closed. The next day, we get in the car. We drive 4 hours down to Cornwall, stay in a hotel. On the Monday morning, I phone the agent, and she says, "I'm so sorry. The house has been let. It's gone. It's not available."
Okay.
So I was like, "What?" I was so confused by this point. I had this dream, I've seen the dream literally. Now here's
your wife with you,
actually convinced her that maybe renting is what the universe sort of like really is telling us to try and do. Massive rejection, a hard one to understand his protection. Drive back 4 hours, trying to regroup. And on the Wednesday, I have a phone call from the estate agent. She said, Matt, you inquired about that property on Monday. She said, well, the lady who was due to pick up the keys on Thursday, she's just pulled out. And there's a lot of other people, I can't remember how many, on the wait list before you that also inquired. I can't get hold of any of them. If you want it's yours. So that the day after, Coruscant drove all the way down to Cornwall without me because I had calls, viewed it, and we moved in 2 weeks later. The exact house.
On the rental.
The rental. So we moved in November the 10th, 2023. Okay. That house that we tried to buy simultaneously sold. So I'm like, okay. But we sort of like put it on the back burner, fell in love with Cornwall. And in fact, our life just went to another level, just sort of being in Cornwall, a level that, is well beyond where we were before. And then in that falling in love and just like being really present and happy in the April, this house came up.
So the house that you're in, you mean as in it became available from renting to purchase, or?
No. So I'm renting this farmhouse in Cornwall. Take it on in the November, and then in the April of 2024, so about 6 months later, 5 months later, a house in the same village as the other house I wanted to buy comes available, 20% less in value. And that was the house that we subsequently bought, which I'm in now. So we rented for about 10 months. We took a year's term.
Can I just say what I love about this story is that the universe doesn't give you a straight road.
No, it was great.
And also what I really like is that you talked about the falling in love with Cornwall, and the falling in love feeling that we have to the audience is a magnet. It's a massive, massive magnet. And often you cannot move from a place until you find love with where you're at or make peace with where you're at. And exactly. This is something I found that when I lived in London for a long time. And initially I was just needed to move to New York. just like London, I got to move to New York. And I remember once I looked in a newspaper and it said the bridge has been made between London and New York. And I was like, wow, that's the sign. That's what I needed. But my work wasn't done. And I went to a seminar and they said, you've got to find a way to make peace with where you're at. Yeah. And I was like, right, that really rings a bell. And so I went around London trying to find the best places, the best hotels, the best places to eat. Now, I don't drink, but I love to eat good food and good meals and enjoy great, beautiful things. So I just went to go and visit all the top hotels and have a cup of tea in them. I went to go and I went to visit some of the nicest restaurants and just, have a meal there when they had the special offers. And I was just like, oh my golly, I found so many beautiful things about this country. And eventually when I did go to New York, I went on a holiday and I went there and I was like, this place is not for me. And I'm not saying that New York isn't great because it's a great city, but I recognized that there was something else that I didn't know. And, and if I fast forward, where I am now in Spain, I've been coming here accidentally without ever recognizing here for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I've been here for a stag do. I'd been here for a family. When we hired a villa for my mum's 65th surprise, my sister booked it, I never did. And then eventually, fast forward, my cousin moved here until my parents bought a place. And then when my father passed away and my mother wanted to move back to the UK, I found myself being here. And I thought, what if all this time I've been pulled without me recognizing to a certain place because it's for my highest good?
Yeah.
So anyone who's listening, like Matt has said, that he's been receiving the ideas for the dreams or receiving the ideas for the property, the universe won't necessarily give you a clear route. It will just give you the next step.
You've just got to follow, I call it the breadcrumbs. You've got to follow the signs, the synchronicity, the dreams, the intuition. And you've also got to take inspired action, like an element. You've said two things there, which are really important. Where we lived previously in Shropshire, it's a very sleepy area, about 10 miles from the Welsh border. Beautiful, but just not our vibe. And we wanted to previously try and manifest Cornwall a couple of years before that. And we're on the wrong vibration. We had to fall in love with where we lived in order to manifest Cornwall. And that's what you've just said. And here's why. You don't want the thing that you think you want. You don't. What you want is the version of yourself that exists in your imagination when you have the thing you want, right? Think about that. And that's the same with like manifesting a specific person is one of the hottest topics in manifestation. But again, people are offended by this. You don't want the person. You want the version of yourself that exists in your imagination when you're with that person because they make you feel a certain way. So are you in lack of that feeling now? And that realization for me was like, I need to embody Cornwall in Shropshire. And then, I was so certain in that belief, even though I had no idea how it would manifest. When a sign came up, we put our name down for a storage unit in Cornwall because we'd sold our house in Shropshire and it was in storage. Right. And this lady phoned, and 6 months previously, I put my name down and she said, "Oh, storage unit's free. Do you want it?" Most people would wait until they'd found a house in Cornwall. No, Coruscant and I, we moved our whole house to Cornwall. And we were living out of a backpack pretty much at her parents' house, 4 hours away. And people thought we were crazy, but I took the inspired action. And for me, it felt like there was a huge chunk of our energy in Cornwall already before the rental even.
Can I just say something? This is massive intention. That by putting all your stuff in storage in Cornwall, your intention was already laid, and that takes some guts to be able to do that.
Yeah, the
intention is that's why you felt like part of you was already there, because your energy is your stuff. It's an extension of you.
You've got to see it like the probability distributor, if you like, before it rendered into physical reality. If you do a big bold act like that and you put your energy and your intent there, it almost has to collapse in that favor.
Yeah, it's a bit like digging the earth ready to put the flowers in. Are you going to?
Yeah, don't wait.
Don't wait.
We're just not raised like that, though. Everyone, like people thought we were crazy. Why is your house in Cornwall? You haven't got a house.
But fast forward a couple of years, it's not "I told you so." It's just I'm living my own truth, and this is the circle that we've had today, which is, what's your truth?
Yeah.
Does that exist? Does that probability exist? And the answer is
yes. But it just might not be a straight road, and but that's fun. If we think of any film, any story we read, it's the twists and the turns that make the story. And, the only reason that this podcast is interesting, if it is because of the stories that you and I have shared about our twists and turns. And people can hopefully resonate with that. It's not a straight line. Don't get me wrong. Some things do manifest very quickly and it feels too easy. But a lot of the time it requires a bit of work and the journey of the twists and the turns.
Matt, it's been an absolute joy to reconnect and speak and share stories, because the stories are the bits that actually make this really visceral for people, so they can have their own. I'd always say to people, can share the tools, but ultimately you have to get your own experience, and the stories are a way that we can live vicariously to go, oh, actually that could be for me.
Exactly, I agree.
It's real, that's what happened to Matt, or that's what happened to James, and they just seem like everyday types of things.
Normal guys. Yeah, exactly. Just
everyone is extraordinary in the everyday, and these everyday things and tools that you share and that we've spoken about today are very transformative and do make life a lot more fun.
Have fun. I always say, if people are struggling right now, I always use the analogy of, if you've ever played a game and that game becomes really hard, it's fun because it's hard. When a game's like easy, it's like, I'm sick of this game. Like, it's too easy. The games that I remember as a kid are the ones that I got stuck on, and like, have fun with this. And that straight away makes it lighter, but just realize that anything you seek firstly already exists. But have fun with the twists and the turns in the journey, and have fun in understanding how long it takes and where you might be redirected to, and understand it's not your job to control. Your job is to get clear and work with it and see what happens.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been great to have you back on the Super Soul Model series. Matt,
thank you, James.
This week's Super Soul Model.